but what he had was heart, attitude, grit, determination. He had it all. He was such a character of a horse and still is.
You know, there was referencing that Talk to Talk might go to the intermediate distance instead of running in the Supreme. That's a load of crap.
But I was sitting at home with a punctured lung and 8 broken ribs, so it didn't really matter.
So you would have picked the wrong one.
I would have picked the wrong one, yeah.
Hello and welcome back to Inside Track Ireland, our brand new weekly podcast brought to you from William Hill, discussing all things Irish racing. And God knows at this time of year we have much to discuss. I'll be doing all that in the company of my regular partner Barry Geraghty. And while Barry, last week we were on site with Gordon Elliott, this week we're bringing Lisa O'Neill on the journey with us virtually.
Yeah, it'd be great to hear Lisa's thoughts on all that's going on. But no, it was a brilliant visit to Gordon's last week. Really enjoyable. Lots of good feedback from a lot of different sources. So no, it's been good, and it was a good visit in itself. And he gave us massive access, a lot of insight both to his training and where he's brought it from and where it's come from, to his own personal journey as well. So no, it was a really good sit down with Gordon.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing that I took from the visit was we all are overexposed to stable tours and racing chatter, but I loved the background to how the man has got to where he is. And I really admire, just in any walk of life, somebody who's completely self-made. And that was the bit that resonated with me, and getting feedback from people across the industry who listened to the podcast. It's on YouTube if you want to tune into it. Just how admirable his story is. You've known him for quite a long time, and I don't want to spend too much time on this podcast referencing it, but it was quite an inspirational story.
Really was, absolutely. I've known Gordon since we were teenagers, before we had got licenses out to ride on the racecourse. And yeah, his journey from there, his family, everything, it is unbelievable what he's done. And yeah, and the podcast itself was done brilliantly with over 100,000 views. I suppose that's a reflection of the quality, of what Gordon gave us. So no, it was a brilliant. It was a good chat.
Well, reading between the lines, I think you guys started off in the saddle around the same time, but he watched your trajectory in the saddle, and that kind of in between the lines said, "I'll become a trainer." So here we are. He's now nearly champion trainer, and you multiple champion jockey, and we'll get going into today's podcast. Before we do, make sure you've downloaded the William Hill app. It's super easy. Just head over to the App Store and we'll kick on with today's show. I'm acutely aware we have much to get through in today's podcast, so let's bring in our guest. You'll know her as a regular alongside Barry Geraghty and myself on RTE. She's a dual Kerry National winning rider, and she is the most successful female ginger amateur of all time. It is Lisa O'Neill. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks, Jane. And Barry, of course, it's nice to be on with you both. That's a reference I've never heard before, and it's good to know.
Let's be honest, it only really matters when it's coming from me, because I have to accept that you won more races than me, and you won a lot of very good ones. You're obviously a part of Gordon Elliott's team, but you're also a pundit on Racing TV and RTE. Tell us, what's the last couple of weeks been like for you?
Yeah, it's been busy. This is a really good time of year. It's an exciting time of year. I think from before Christmas time, between beginners chases and maiden hurls, we watched some superstars rise through the ranks, and it's all building up to the spring festivals. And the next few weeks, I suppose, are going to come thick and fast, and loads to look forward to. But it's been a busy time, and it's not a bad complaint, I suppose.
Yeah, well, it's particularly busy when you're going from the yard to Liverpool in the company of our chauffeur, Barry Geraghty. Very kindly drove Lisa and I and Mary Mangan to the weights in Liverpool on Tuesday. But we'll get on to that momentarily. I just want to quickly reference the day. It is Constitution Hill Day. If you're listening to the podcast, you probably know the result. We don't. My question to you, Barry, who you know the horse very well, it's well publicised by now. Does tonight's result actually matter? And will he run in the champion hurdle anyway?
The only reason tonight's result would matter is if he disappointed and he didn't run to the level he's expected. So that's the only reason it would matter, as in it could rule him out of a champion hurdle. You'd like to think he's going to run a big race. You'd love to think he'd win. But I'd say his schooling at home is going to decide whether he takes part in the champion hurdle. That'll be the deciding factor, unless, you say, he puts in a no-show this evening.
Okay, well, we've always been told that the schooling at home is marvellous, and then he goes to the track and he acts like a kamikaze pilot. Lisa, does he win?
I'd love to see him win. I suppose time will tell. We'll see this evening what he's capable of. But if he can transfer that level of form that we've seen him run to on the track over hurls onto the flat, I think he will win. Personally, I'd love to see him win. I'd love to see him win hard on the bridle. Look, it's tough opposition he's up against as well for his debut effort on the track. But he's got a top man on board, and we'll see how it works out this evening. But I'd love to see him win, and I think he's capable of it.
Yeah, it's fascinating. If it was a Hollywood film, you'd hardly believe it. But anyway, something tells me there's plenty of chapters yet to be written in the Constitution Hill book. We'll be referencing the result, no doubt, in next week's edition of Inside Track Ireland. But let's kick off, because we got the handicap entries out for Cheltenham this week, Barry. We don't have weights until next week, but is there anything absolutely jumping off the page that you think the listeners should be on side or indeed against?
The difficulty is you don't know how the English handicapper is going to react. So I think it's always good to have a look at maybe an Irish runner who has some handicap form in England. I thought Blaze the Way could be of interest. It'd be interesting to see what weight that gets. Has a couple of entries there in some of the novice handicaps and I think the National Hunt Chase as well. So options there, and the Ultimate too. So he'd be one. Maybe Waterford Whispers on a big race at the DRF. That was a big step up from what he'd done previously, and could be a horse to do as well in the spring.
Blaze the Way. Remind me who has that horse.
That's Mags Mullins.
Mags Mullins, interesting.
Beat Lahan Press in the December Gold Cup. Lahan Press then was second to a horse you know quite well, Splan's Tower.
Yeah, we'll get on to Splan's Tower momentarily when we talk about the Aintree Weights, but that's interesting. Blaze the Way for Barry. Lisa, you obviously have been across all of the entries. You were probably making entries. What caught your eye?
Yeah, there was a couple that caught my eye, actually. A couple from, I suppose, Emmett Mullins goes there with a strong hand. Back Me or Sack Me has a big chance in the National Hunt Chase. He was a Leopardstown Chase winner, obviously, and has an Irish mark of 133, so it'll be interesting to see what the English handicapper does with him. I thought Pren's Garde Trois, he has an entry also in the National Hunt Chase. He's quite a big price, but acquitted himself really well in a Grand National trial, staying on late in the day at Punchestown last week. I thought an interesting one in the handicaps for me that I was a little bit surprised to see him back in the handicaps, but is Kopek to Me for Willie Mullins. He's in the Coral and the County as well. Was he not the
buzz horse of all of
last year? Yeah, last year he was sent off favour for the Martin Pipe. I think from flag fall it didn't work out. He was too keen. He jumped Pearly. But I think he redeemed himself in Aintree when he came home fast to finish second. I think he's capable of landing a big pot, and I think he's when I looked, he was big enough prices for an entry in the Coral and the County, but we'll see what the English handicapper does with him. Another couple, I thought the Passing Wife in the Coral and the County as well. And
there's rumours, not rumours. Gavin Cromwell has said that it's possible that horse could be supplemented for an Albert Bartlett, even depending on what weight he gets.
Oh, interesting. I think we'll all be watching with bated breath to see next week what the English handicapper does with some of these Irish horses. But
there'll be an avalanche of giving out. We have to.
I don't envy that job by any means. But You Have Me in Stitches is another one, I think. Horse by Walk in the Park at a Blue Sea Cracker, the Irish national winner. In the Kimmuir, I think one to keep on side of.
Yeah, interesting. We've referenced a lot of JP McManus horses there in the handicaps. It is notable that the one horse that we were all talking about thinking for handicaps is not actually entered in any handicap, and that is the Wall Park. He was going to be, I think, a buzz horse for every Cheltenham preview night, like a Kopek to Me last year, and he's just not in there, Barry. Is it a case of straight to the Irish national for him?
Possibly. Maybe Lisa might have a better line on that than me, but it's obviously a surprise to see him not in Cheltenham. So whether there's something amiss or not, maybe Lisa would take this one.
No, all is good with him. Obviously, Connections have decided not to go to Cheltenham, and he has plenty of options for the spring festivals ahead. So we'll see where he ends up. But he's certainly caught plenty of eyes, I think.
Yeah, he will be referencing Oscar's brother in a minute. He was an eye-catching second behind him last time at Navan. One or two nuggets that I picked up that actually wasn't from handicaps. It was just from chatting to people during the week. I met Anthony Bromley in Liverpool, and there was referencing that Talk to Talk might go to the intermediate distance instead of running in the Supreme. That's a load of crap. He's running in the Supreme. People saying he's jumping this and that. He's got loads of gears. So Joseph O'Brien very keen to send Talk to Talk to the Supreme. I'm very, very strong on him. It sounds like Ontario Pass is going to skip the Cheltenham Festival despite winning well in the Red Mills Chase last weekend. They think the flat track at Aintree will suit him and he'll go there, whether it's actually the Grand National or for the bowl. Barry, would it be the Melling or the bowl?
Melling or the bowl. Yeah, he'd have his options, wouldn't he? Sure, 2.5, but 2.5 on better ground. Maybe that's a little sharp from at this stage. You can meet the Champion Chase winner there or that standard. So
meet John Bon there.
They'd be his options. Maybe the bowl could be the one.
So with him, we were obviously chatting then about Kopek de Board, because Ontario Pass was one of a number of horses who schooled around Punchestown with the one-time chase starter Kopek de Board, who was quite short price for the Arkle. And, it's nice to see Ontario Pass come out and win if Kopek de Board did, in fact, school with him. So as somebody who's very strong on Lulamba, I think Kopek de Board going around Punchestown with such a classy horse upsides must be, invaluable experience. And that's where Willie Mullins and Gordon Elliott, who have that caliber of horse to school at home with, have such an advantage over smaller trainers. And Oscar's brother, he's obviously in the Grand National. This will be my segue into the Grand National momentarily. Saw he's around 20-1 for the Brown Advisory. I thought that was a little bit of an insult. I think if he was with a bigger trainer, he'd be a much shorter price. But we will kick on into the Grand National section now. But before that, I want to remind you that William Hill are now a non-runner money back on all 28 races at the Cheltenham Festival. We said it before. You can bet safe in the knowledge that knowing that if your horse does not run, you will get your money back. So Barry Geraghty very kindly drove Lisa, Jane and Mary Mangan to the lunch in Liverpool last Tuesday. Very much appreciated. We'll tip you when we see you next.
Good driving as well.
The weights were revealed. It was quite obvious that I Am Maximus was going to be the ceiling once again. There's a lot of Irish horses in the top 10. Barry, there's a lot of Gold Cup caliber horses in the top 10. What caught your eye positively and negatively?
Well, I suppose, you have a lot of classy horses at the top there. You mentioned last year's, or I Am Maximus, the previous winner before. A lot of quality there, and you're looking then for horses who are maybe less exposed. I know Gordon Elliott mentioned Firefox. If Firefox was to go here, I think would be definitely one to be on the right side of. Jumps really well. And stepping up in trippy fields, there's potential for improvement in. But there's lots that you can make case of. I think it's a very deep national. And it's not simple, and plenty there with fancy price. I know there's an English horse I liked as well, was Handstands. I think he's got massive price, second in the Florida Lee last time to Protect the Rat, giving him weight. So our third, should I say, was a good run. But I suppose on the day itself, though, Ruby, who was one of the presenters, was having a go at the English handicapper about the treatment of Spanish Harlem. Spanish Harlem, who had a mark of 150 in Ireland and went up £4 for unseating at the last into the Tiestas. The English handicapper matched that £4, but he was already £5 higher in England. So I don't think the English handicapper overreacted there. But to me, there's a difference when you look at the comparison of Panic Attack, who won the Paddy Power Gold Cup in Cheltenham by 4 lengths, went up £4, then won really well in the Coral Cup at Newbury, and went up a further £8 for that, I think it was. And then you look at Captain Cody, who won the Scottish Grand National and got a brilliant ride to win by a length and went up £10. So you could argue that some of the British horses are better treated than the Irish. I'm not sure Spanish Harlem necessarily got an over penalised for what he did in Goran when you compare with the Irish handicapper. But I thought Panic Attack and Captain Cody were a good guide of where there is a slight difference maybe.
Yeah, that's interesting. And obviously we will have a sample of what Spanish Harlem has to offer this weekend when we talk about the Bobbyjo a little bit later on, along with Grange Clare West and Captain Cody. Lisa, you were on duty representing your boss, Gordon Elliott. He has any number of horses in there. If you were to pick one, if you could own one, which one would you want?
Um, I'd possibly side with 3 card Bragg, who we're going to see plenty of this weekend, who lines up in the Bobbyjo chase. I am a fan of Favre de Champdu, but he got an £8 rise from the English handicapper after winning the cross country in January on trials day. So for an 11-year-old, that looks probably harsh enough, carrying 11 stone 1 on his back. But he seems to be in a rich vein of form, but I still think he's probably plenty of weight on his back for his age. I think 3 card Bragg, who ran in the race last year, probably done too much last year, jumped absolutely brilliant, bumped into obviously the Mayor Panic Attack in the Coral Cup, and made a bad mistake, maybe 4 out, which didn't help his cause. But he's off a mark of 156, so that gives him 11 stone on his back. I think off the back of last year with that experience in the bag. And I know obviously Gordon has mentioned as well that he's probably going to be ridden a little bit differently just to conserve a bit of energy and see him get home better. So I think he's probably my pick of the Gordon Elliott contingent.
Interesting. Well, you'd know because you used to ride out Tiger Roll regularly and you won at the Cheltenham Festival on him. So it would be remiss not to reference that little Tiger. Who would have thought he'd won a pair of Grand Nationals when he was taking the Cheltenham fences by the roots with you in the National Hunt Chase?
Yeah, I think I made him look bad, Jane. I think we all went after, like, he jumped regulation fences very economically. He ate a couple of the fences around Cheltenham with me, and building up into the Grand National, I think we all kind of thought, oh God, he's not going to be a nice ride around there. But he proved unbelievable over them. He was, you know, he had scope when he needed it. He was economical when he had to be, but what he had was heart, attitude, grit, determination. He had it all. He was such a character of a horse, and still is.
Yeah.
To this day.
Where is he in Gigginstown now?
He's in Gigginstown at the moment. He usually comes over to Gordon's a couple of times a year to go to Aintree for the parade. He does a couple of other appearances. He grows about 10 foot when he gets into the parade ring in Aintree, especially when he knows there's plenty of people looking at him. But he was one of those horses who just, I think, encapsulated the public. And you know, Barry, from riding some of those horses, that when they get so much, I suppose, when they get so much of a kind of fan base behind them, they just, I suppose, they just grow in popularity, and it's great to see those horses. I always remember to this day Tiger Roll's last run when he was defeated by Delta Work in the cross country race at Cheltenham, and I think Jack Kennedy always mentions that it's the only time he's rode a winner at the Cheltenham Festival and been booed coming back down into the winner's enclosure because he defeated Tiger Roll. But yeah, the reception Tiger Roll got, he done a lap of honour around the parade ring, and I think, you know, it was just, you know, it kind of just made you tingle just seeing how popular he is and how many people just adored him.
Yeah, he was brilliant, but I suppose his Grand National stories was a bit of a David and Goliath because he was so small, you know, and he caught everyone's imagination and appeal, but a dual winner of the race as well. But I remember that day in Cheltenham when poor Jack got booed for beating Tiger Roll, and you know, it was a tough one for Jack, but it was just a reflection of where the racing public held him.
Yeah, and like, as you mentioned, Barry, for him to win a Grand National once, like, but for him to do it twice, for the size he was, but like, his heart, he just had so much heart. It was brilliant. It was, you know, phenomenal just watching him, what he could do and how he done it.
Okay, well, he had heart. He was very intelligent, and he obviously looked after himself very well through his career because he had a very long career and distinguished career. At the moment, Iroko is currently top of the market for JP McManus, who also has the second favourite in Iron Maximus as we speak. Captain Cody, Auti Calor, Monty Star, they're your top horses in the market. I suppose it would be remiss of me not to mention Spallan's Tower. At this stage, he got a mark of 164, which is a weight of 11.8. It's the exact conditions that Nick Rocket used to carry to victory last year as an 8-year-old, 11.8 as an 8-year-old. But I suppose in contrast to that horse, Spallan's Tower has 0 handicap experience, and we don't know at this stage if he's actually going to line up or whether he's going to go to the Gold Cup. But as I was saying to my mum the other day, guys, and you'll completely appreciate it, what a unique situation to find oneself in. Will we go to the Gold Cup or will we go to the Grand National? You know, Barry, when they have, I think they have like 8 horses in training, you would never think that would happen.
No, I know, and it's sure look at Conor King the same with his horse Oscar's brother, but it's brilliant. It's a great obviously for your dad and your family and everyone to have a horse of that quality, and he's a big player wherever he goes. You could go the handicap route and go there fresh and miss the Gold Cup makes a lot of sense. Or you could go roll the dice in the Gold Cup, so it's a big call wherever he goes. But he's a player wherever he goes because I think he's a horse we haven't seen the best of, and you know that better, Jane, than any of us. He hasn't had a clear run at it the last 12 months or so. But he's a horse with a lot of potential, and we probably haven't seen the best of it yet.
Yeah, potentially. Yeah, we would hope that, but we will see what happens in the next couple of weeks. It's hard to believe we're so close to the Cheltenham Festival now. 3 weeks out, much to be discussed. The Cheltenham previews are just starting across the country. All of the evenings now will be taken up with discussions on where horses will go, what will happen. And I suppose one of the most topical conversations, Lisa, is Galopin de Champs versus Gaelic Warrior. Does Townend get his way and convince Willie Mullins to split them up? Or indeed, does Patrick Mullins get his way and get the leg back up in Gaelic Warrior? Because if they run in the Gold Cup, it'll be very hard for Paul Townend to abandon Galopin de Champs.
Yeah, I couldn't see Paul Townend getting off Galopin de Champs. I think it'd be very hard to see Galopin de Champs come past Paul Townend if he did choose to ride something else. But I am of the opinion that I think Willie Mullins will end up splitting them up. I think maybe a Gaelic Warrior will end up in a Ryanair, Galopin de Champs in a Gold Cup. We know he's getting on in years, Galopin de Champs, but I feel like Cheltenham has been just, I suppose, the main thing on the agenda all season long, and I think we'll see him peak in March.
Do you think cheek pieces would improve him?
Maybe they'll help him travel a bit better. I don't see why not if they elected to put them on. I don't think they'd be a hindrance anyway.
What do you think, Barry? I don't see why. They've nothing to lose. It's probably his last roll of the dice in a Gold Cup. It's not going to hinder his chances, surely.
Well, the only way it could is if he overraced, which is probably not likely. But I'm not fully convinced yet he needs them. I don't think he's had a fair crack of the whip, really. He had a rush preparation for Christmas, and maybe that took its toll at the Dublin Racing Festival. So I think he a better chance now, a clear run at this. I think he's a big player, and he's probably one to have a little bit of a look at each way. But I'd agree with Lisa, and reading Willie's quotes on where he sees horses going, I got the impression that Gaelic Warrior is more likely for Ryanair, which would possibly mean Factifile is more likely for a Gold Cup, although he says he hasn't had the discussion yet with JP. But
I don't believe
I'd
that.
imagine JP
Nobody
would rather have
that.
the favourite. Yeah, I'm sure JP would rather have the favourite in the Gold Cup than the favourite in the Ryanair. So I would say that's the way it's going, and obviously Paul Townend wouldn't have a decision to make. But I'd say if both Gaelic Warrior and Galopin de Champs were in good form and lined up in the Gold Cup, he'd stick with Galopin de Champs.
Yeah, I think that's the predictable way to go. I actually want to ask you, Barry, because you were in a unique position of having loads of good horses to ride. We referenced it in the card the other day that you had the choice between You Never Walk Alone of JP McManus's and Monty's Pass in the Grand National in 2003, and you picked the right horse, thank God. And then I always remember when Rachel Blackmore picked A Plutar the year Manila Indo won, and that broke her heart that year. Fortunately, she got compensation the next year. Is there any story, Barry, that we don't know? Did you ever have a big decision to make and you went the wrong way?
Yeah, I was to ride Janwart in the Champion Hurdle, and Bouvardere won it. But I was sitting at home with a punctured lung and 8 broken ribs, so it didn't really matter.
So you would have picked the wrong one.
I would have picked the wrong one, yeah. So I would have got that one wrong. But it's I probably benefited from others choosing the wrong ones when AP picked at Fisher's Cross and I rode more of that on the stairs. And he rode My 10 to Yours and I rode Jesky in the Champion Hurdle. So I've benefited more from those decisions, I think, on the other hand. But it's a tricky one. Personally, I'd always put it to myself as who would you rather be sitting on watching the other win? As in, which would be the bigger shock, to be sitting on Galopin de Champs watching someone else win on Gaelic Warrior, or vice versa. So even the way Paul is thinking, you can read between the lines. He doesn't want to be sitting on Gaelic Warrior watching Galopin de Champs win a third Gold Cup.
No, and that's probably the most palatable way to to live with such a decision, but very unique problems to have all the same. One buzz horse before we move off the Cheltenham Festival and look ahead to this weekend is a horse called Mighty Park. He's quite popular in the Supreme market. We saw him once. He was imperious. He beat a grand horse, but he beat him senseless. What kind of vibe are you getting, Lisa, from Mighty Park? Is he flying completely under the radar because we haven't seen enough of him?
I don't know if he's flying under the radar. I'm only going back to maybe some of the media days last week, and I think some of the quotes from Willie Mullins when he referred to Mighty Park, speaking with, I think maybe Frank Berry, and he referred to Mighty Park as his champion bumper winner running in the Supreme. I think he referred to Mighty Park in that way. So he obviously holds him in very high regard. And I think he's one that's not to be ignored by any means, albeit he goes in there with a little bit of lack of experience compared to a couple of others. He certainly showed himself off really well in Fairyhouse. He's a huge engine, and yeah, I think he's a talented type that could have a big say in it.
My question to you, Barry, is it's been a long time since a horse has just won a maiden and won a Supreme. I can't think of the name of the horse, but it's a good 10 years.
I'd say there's a better chance of finding maidens who won it rather than one who just won a maiden. He was very impressive. And it's for what it's worth, he has the benefit of some point-to-point experience, which really caught the eye that day. He was second on horse of JP's called Harry Lowe's, who probably hasn't excited since, but I know Mighty Park as a runner-up that day really caught the eye. But he was really impressive in Fairyhouse, obviously the runner-up. Rock Dino has gone on, he was second to El Caras in Thurles next time, but he was 38 lengths behind him, and he was a comfortable winner that day, Mighty Park. So Willie has compared him, he said he's Fahine-esque. So when you put him in that kind of bracket, Willie doesn't, sing from the trees about anything, so when he's talking one up like that, you have to take note.
Yeah, I also think it's unusual to talk up a JP McManus horse in that way. That's not usually their style. So he's currently Willie Mullins' shortest price horse in the Supreme. Old Park Star, Talk the Talk, El Kairos, Mighty Park, Sober Glory. Ballyfad not going to go there, Lisa? No? Give us a little bit of, no?
Options are still open.
Stop, get off the fence.
Yeah, it'll be a last minute decision, I can assure you, but the decision will be made, I'd say, a week in advance.
El Kairos run the Supreme and Ballyfad run the Intermediate. Right, let's kick on into the weekend. Before we do that weekend preview, a reminder to all our listeners and viewers that William Hill are offering a €5 free bet when you stake €10 on any race this weekend. The offer is now live, and it is so until the end of the weekend on Sunday evening. So don't miss out. We have plenty to look forward to this weekend. I suppose the race we really want to dissect properly is the Bobbyjo Chase. This is going to give us a lot of clues with reference to the Aintree National. Willie Mullins is strongly represented, but Lisa, we better start with 3-Card Bragg. You've already mentioned him. He's a very exciting horse. He's promised a lot, but something tells me he's yet to deliver his.
Yeah, I think he's got a big pot in him. Obviously, he was very good when he was behind Panic Attack in the Coral Cup. He made a mistake 4 out, didn't help his chances, but he's had a little break since. He's been freshened up. He goes to the Bobbyjo in really good form. He looks fantastic. I think he's gone from strength to strength actually this season, and he's in nearly better form this season going into, I suppose, the spring than he probably was last season. So I'm fully convinced he's probably a better horse this year, and there's more to come from him. He's in great form, and obviously the Grand National will be his main target, but Bobbyjo this weekend, and he's the pick of Jack Kennedy as well, which is certainly a big vote of confidence.
Definitely. And now that the weights are published, all of these horses are safe. Their weights won't be moved, Barry. So Willie Mullins has 4 in here. We referenced Spanish Harlem. I think just Grangeclare West's form is head and shoulders above these. If you're taking form literally, ratings literally, this is his race to lose, is it not?
I'd have thought so. But he has the tendency of throwing in a disappointing one now and again. He was well beaten by Sinicia last season when going on to be placed in the Grand National. So he is a very good horse. He was second to Galopin the Champ at Christmas Christmas the year before last. So yeah, he's a high level of form. He would be the one to beat. Handicap ratings has him well ahead. He doesn't have to carry a penalty either. So no, he should be hard to beat. He's Paul Townend's choice as well, which you'd imagine means he's a bit better than his last one when he was 75 lengths, I think, behind Factor 5.
Yeah. One horse that's really fascinating, and I thought there was a glimmer of his previous glory at Goran, Lisa, is Jerry Colomb. He's obviously entered the Cheltenham Festival. He's entered in Liverpool as well. He's a 10-year-old now. Can we restore him to his former glory?
Yeah, I think there's every chance. Obviously, he's probably achieved the most out of any of the rest of these that run in the Bobbyjo. Like, he's a 5-time Grade 1 winner, second in the Gold Cup as well. Obviously, he missed time through injury, but he was pulled up subsequently on his return to action at Leopardstown. Jack pulled him up. He wasn't happy with him. Back over hurls at Goran Park. I think there is definitely a glimmer of ability there, and if he's a lot of back class. If he can get back to anything that we've seen of him before, I think he's very overpriced. I can't remember what he is at the moment, but he's certainly a big price last time I seen. And if he shows what he's capable of previously and recaptures that form, he's one for an each way bet, I think.
Is he showing that at home? Is he sparking?
He's in good form at home. He's come on from his Goran Park run, where I thought he ran really well to a point at Goran Park. And look, he goes there in good form as well as he can be, and we just need to see him do it on the track now.
Absolutely. Barry, there's obviously, we're going to have 3-way each way betting, or 3 places each way betting even. Is there anything we're overlooking here that is worthy of a mention?
I suppose there is. Maybe like Jerry Colomb is the horse who has the class, who Lisa mentions. He's probably the standout. Captain Cody took a heavy fall in Goran last time. Conditions are probably against him. So, I suppose if there was one to spring from the fancy prices, Jerry Colomb would be the one who'd have that form, especially on that ground.
Interesting. Okay, well, that's the Bobbyjo chase. We move on to Naas, where William Hill are sponsoring Cheltenham Trials Day at the Kildare track. We'll start with the 2:30, Barry. It's a juvenile. Download the William Hill app, juvenile hurdle. There's a couple of interesting horses that have form here. There's one particularly interesting filly that has yet to be seen on these shores. Majolique, once run, she won at Longchamp in May of 25. She debuts here in the colours of honeysuckle for Willie Mullins and Paul Townend. What can we expect?
Well, she is the one of real interest. Obviously comes here first and over hurdles, so there's a few ways to look at it. I'd imagine if she's going to go and win this, which she possibly could with the strength of her form and connections she has coming from where she's coming from, you'd like to think she could be the one to win it. But if she doesn't win this, she's going to maybe maintain her maiden tag for next season. So real interest. Probably have to take a little bit on trust, but of the opposition, Immediate Effect was well beaten last time. Adrian, Ted Walsh's runner, has some good form, but bombed out only 3 weeks ago, so has to bounce back from that run. So it might be worth taking a chance on the favourite here. It wouldn't be unusual for Willie to line one up here. They would be well prepped, would have had a schooling race someplace over the last few weeks, so they generally know their job when they're lining out in a quality race like this.
Yeah, let's not forget how many horses Willie Mullins ran in the Triumph last year. She's currently 33-1, and I know it's not his style to back up a horse quickly towards the Cheltenham Festival, but stranger things have happened, and people are bringing in rules to stop him running horses first time out and things now. So maybe she just needs to run, and she couldn't go straight to the Triumph because she wouldn't qualify. Anyway, I did a little bit digging on her sire. She's by a horse called Tigron, who's only ever had 22 runners. He's an American bred horse who's by a sire I've never heard of, and he's had 11 winners, but he's never had a winner over jumps in Britain or Ireland. So let's see if he can get his first. Gordon Elliott has Immediate Effect, who didn't disgrace himself in Grade 1 company at Leopardstown, Lisa. It's a fair drop in class for him.
It is. It's a big drop in class for him. It's nothing to be sniffed at, being beaten 14 lengths by Narciso Has and beaten 10 lengths by Selman Davari. He's a horse that probably didn't jump as slick and quick as he should have done in Grade 1 company the last day. So dropping back into a different class today, I think he could be a big player here. Could be the biggest threat to, obviously, the favourite. He has the experience as well, so that'll surely help him. And as Barry mentioned, the filly Adrian, of Ted Walsh's. She actually is back against her own age group today, as is Sopolana with Jordan Gainford back on board. They both disappointed against probably stiffer company the last day, so both back against their age category, but I think Immediate Effect might be the one to give the favourite the biggest scare.
Okay, I like Immediate Effect as well. I thought to the second last he was running a good race in Grade 1 company, and given his experience, might just take on the favourite. God knows, she'd probably win by 10 lengths now. We move on to the 4:30, the William Hill Racing Bet Builder Chase. It's a 3-mile grade 3 event, even over 2 miles. A fascinating affair because we've got a former champion chase winner here as Captain Guinness takes on Touch Me Not, Blood Destiny, Path de Rue, and Drumgill. Barry, it's a trappy, tricky little race now for a punter to get involved in.
It is obviously Captain Guinness, former Cheltenham winner, champion chase winner, but he's well on in years now. He's 12-year-old, I think it is, or he's 11-year-old, should I say? Sorry. Would generally struggle in these conditions. Has some form on soft ground, but generally heavy ground in a quality race like this, he could be just up against it. Blood Destiny would be the obvious one, but pulled up last time in the Dan and Joan Moore and Ferios on this ground, but would have form on the ground. But you have to draw a line through that run in Ferios. He would be best treated at the weights. Obviously, Touch Me Not was third in the Dan Moore at Ferios, so he ran well to his form that day. But if Blood Destiny was to reproduce his best, he would be the one to beat, and I would have thought Touch Me Not on the conditions would be the biggest threat.
Yeah, Blood Destiny has just frustrated me so much. I'm convinced that horse has the heart the size of a piston, but he has ability. There's no doubt, there's no questioning that. And I like Touch Me Not, Lisa, but he's got a £9 penalty to carry, and at the weights he shouldn't be able to do that, or at the ratings.
No, he's unfavoured by the race conditions, to be honest, Jane, even though he's probably been, I suppose, showing himself off fairly well in handicap company, carrying plenty of weight on his back. But he's up against it considering the way the conditions are. Captain Guinness, I think, would warm the heart if he got back into the winner's enclosure. I think it'd be lovely to see for Henry de Bromhead, Dara O'Keefe. Thought it was quite interesting, actually, that Henry has elected to enter him in the Grand Annual at the Cheltenham Festival as well. So he's entered in a handicap for the very first time at the Cheltenham Festival. I suppose it'll all depend on how he shapes up this weekend. But I couldn't agree more with you, Jane. Blood Destiny for me has probably been a frustrating horse, and I'm not sure where I sit with him, but I'd be happy to take him on with something. But what it is, probably go Captain Guinness.
Captain Guinness for Lisa, the 11-year-old. Barry?
Yeah, well, I think the favourite will be hard to beat if he reproduces, and as you mentioned, Touch Me Not has that penalty, but he has the recent form of being third in Feria, so it's a tricky one, but he could be the one on the book with recent form who could trouble the favourite, but the favourite has to underperform to come in comparison to his best form.
That's fair enough point. Well, we move on to the 5 o'clock, the 2.5 mile William Hill best odds guaranteed Naas Sunday Novices Chase. Best of luck with the British for pronouncing that at the weekend. It's a listed handicap. It's a big field. JP McManus currently has the favourite in the shape of Gaurav Mahagut. Again, best of luck with that. Kishbank, Cobalt St. George. Barry, I'll leave you take the first pick here. Where do you want to start?
I like Roisin, Terence O'Brien's runner. Won first time over course and distance for Terence last time out. John Shinnock is flying as well. It's a trappy race, very competitive, but I thought Roisin, Terence having a brilliant year. Last couple of seasons he's been flying, so I thought that was interesting.
Absolutely. Lisa, you obviously, the yard is represented, but you don't have to. You can go against Kishbank if you want.
Kishbank actually probably is the one that I would side with in this, even though he's dropping back in trip. I was impressed by what he'd done with the lack of experience in Leopardstown the last day in handicap company off the back of what was only 2 previous runs over fences. He's got the cheek pieces on, he's got Jack Kennedy on board as well, although he's gone up £6 in the handicap. Though the favourite at the moment, as you mentioned, Gaurav Mahagut, Jane, I have seen him a couple of times over fences, and I definitely think he's capable of far better than what we've seen of him so far. So I'm not surprised to see him marked up as favourite. And obviously Robert Tyner's horse, Colbert St. George, has been climbing up in the handicaps, but bids to get 4 wins in a row. But I think this could be stiffer opposition for him today. So Kishbank is the one for me.
And it's Gaurav Mahagut for me. £7 better off with Roisin, and it looks like a proper this is a punter's contest, and I'd say he might be the one for me. All right, it's time we get down to business. And Lisa, you won't probably be aware, but Jane and Barry are on a bit of a roll with their naps the last couple of weeks. So let's see if we can keep that up. It's time to bring in our professional, the man from William Hill HQ, Dave Kellner, also known as DK. You will be relieved to hear that we're not napping Gaurav Mahagut this weekend. So you're off the hook with the Gaelic pronunciations.
As soon as I saw those prices and we were previewing this 5 o'clock at Naas, I thought, please do not come to me for the betting here. I know that I am meant to be on here to do the betting, but I thought it's Magic McColgan, Cobalt St. George, and the number 4 horse, as far as I'm concerned. And then it was up to you, Jane, to fill in the gaps thereafter.
Look, we find it quite amusing, you know. We struggle with the French pronunciations from time to time, and no doubt Gaurav Mahagut will probably turn out to be a champion. So we'll have plenty of other podcasts where we can throw out that fishing rod. But not this weekend. We're going to start with you, Barry, the Bobbyjo chase. Nice and simple for Dave.
Yeah, obviously, the top horse, Grange West, is the likely favourite. You know, he's top rated. He gets the allowances. He did disappoint the last time, but he did disappoint on his run before finishing third in the Aintree Grand National last season. So he has a little bit of every second run he turns up. So I'm banking on this being the good run after the bad run. So I think he's the one. He's obviously ratings make him the likely favourite, and I'd imagine the fact that Paul Townend has chosen him over Willie's other runners as well speaks well for him.
Yeah, Grange West is favourite for the race, Barry. He's currently in the betting at 100 to 30. Spanish Harlem is 4 to 1. 3-card Bragg is the early market mover when this market was formed yesterday. 3-card Bragg's the one that's been popular, 9 to 2 from 5 to 1. Captain Cody is 6 to 1. Answer to Cafe in the betting at 17 to 2. Stellar Story is 11 to 1. The one that's interesting is Lecky Watson. I know yourself and Jane were invited to the weights lunch on Tuesday. I didn't get an invite to that, unfortunately. But you two were there, and Lecky Watson is one of the big market movers for William Hill for the Aintree Grand National, 25 to 1 from 50 to 1 following the weights announcement there. He's been given a nice racing weight of 11 stone 2, and obviously won the Grade 1 Brown Advisory as a novice last year. So he's really interesting, Lecky Watson. I'll be intrigued to see the shape of this Bobbyjo, because all these horses they've been taken care of, haven't they, to a large extent, looking for that mark for the Aintree Grand National, and Grange West is one of them in there. 100 to 30 favourite for the race. But yeah, Lecky Watson's interesting at 12 to 1 if he shows a little bit of sparkle. He's been highly tried in Grade 1 races this season, but he's a big market move for the Aintree Grand National on the back of the weights being released on Tuesday.
Interesting. I wouldn't particularly want to be queuing up to ride Lecky Watson now, Barry, but that'll be a conversation for another day. Lisa, you're taking Barry on in the Bobbyjo.
I am. I'm going to throw a spanner in the works. I'm going to take you on, Barry. With 3-card Bragg mentioned as a market mover. I think he looks brilliant at home, and I thought it was a really cracking run in the Coral Cup at Newbury back in November time. He's had a little break, he's been freshened up since, and I think he goes there with a massive chance on Saturday.
And I tell you one other interesting thing, by the way, 3-card Bragg, as you mentioned, 9 to 2. One other interesting thing here, Barry, is that you got it spot on against the compilers a couple of weeks ago with Staffordshire Knot when they wanted to oppose you then. I messaged them this morning and said, which horse do you want to lay in this race? And they want to lay Grange West, interestingly, for Paul Townend. I'm not making this up. They said that they thought the horse might be overbet because Paul Townend has selected Grange West as his ride in this race, and they think it's a toss of a coin with a few of the Willie Mullins runners in there.
Yeah, maybe they're right, but to me, on his best form, second at the Dublin Racing Festival last season, third in the Aintree Grand National, has a tendency of a bad run, but he's coming on the back of a bad run, which could be a good sign. I think Paul, with the choice he had of other lively contenders, the fact he's picked this fella, I think speaks for himself.
Well, did we get a price on 3-card Bragg, or?
9 to 2 from 5s. Yeah, so that's the market movement.
Okay, well, Lisa, there you go. The avalanche will, once this goes out, the avalanche on Grange West will happen, because Barry's very much the punter's friend at the moment. I'm going away from the feature race of the weekend, and I'm going to a regular Naas Handicap hurdle. Fairy House Handicap hurdle, even named after the great Tommy Carberry. Lyndon Arden. One of the stories of the season that hasn't really got published, DK, is the Bow family success. They've had some fabulous wins, and I think it could only get better. Lyndon Arden is up £6 from winning at Punchestown last time, but I think there's more to come. Do the punters think that too?
They're scared of you, Jane, because this race isn't one they've priced up yet. So you'll have to wait. We'll all be waiting with bated breath for this race to get priced with Lyndon Arden, the selection there. But this isn't a race they've come to price up yet. This Tommy Carberry handicap.
Yeah, I don't think they're scared of me. I just think that I picked the wrong race. Is what's happened. Anyway, if it's any consolation, the Bobbyjo chase is fascinating with reference to the Grand National. But when we come back next week, we'll know the result of the Constitution Hill race. We'll hopefully know if he's going to run in the Champion Hurdle, and we'll be all guns blazing towards Cheltenham. So don't forget, if you like the sound of some of our picks for this weekend's racing, you can combine them in a racing bet builder. William Hill have the best builder out there, so check out on the app or online and get building your bet for Naas, for Fairy House, and for beyond. That's it for today. If you've enjoyed listening or watching, we'd love if you could subscribe to the podcast and maybe even leave us a written review, comments, or any topics you wish for us to discuss. Subscribe to William Hill Ireland's YouTube channel and tell us what you think of the big talking points in the comment section. We're, of course, on across all of the social media platforms from Instagram to X and Facebook. And for the very best prices, if you haven't already done so, download the William Hill app. And of course, please gamble responsibly. We shall see you next week.